Good morning and welcome to What the Bleep Are Spiritual Practices. Today we have a full panel and my co-host will be in shortly. I want to thank everyone for being here today. This is our last webinar in this series. Don't know where this is going to go, but it's been a fabulous experience to interact with so many different people and learn what they do and have them share their wisdom with us. So today, we're just going to go around and have you do a little introduction of who you are, what you do, and then we'll go into your narratives and sharing your spiritual practices. So I think we'll just start with Elizabeth, and then we'll go across the screen in order.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. It's my pleasure to be in this panel. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I'm an ancestral clearing practitioner, a yoga-informed and trauma-trained addiction recovery coach, and yoga and meditation teacher, chronic pain management specialist. I wrote the book, The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. And I use all the things I just mentioned, my spiritual practice. I use that really focused for people that have chronic pain because it's chronic pain is any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more. And it doesn't matter what kind of pain it is, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. It all sends the same signal to the brain. It hurts. The brain can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart, right? So anyway, that's what I do. Who I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Rizzoli, and I am a Tantra educator and a sacred sexuality coach. I help spiritually awakened lovers live a satisfying, blissful life without endless trauma processing by activating sexual energies and moving it throughout their whole body. I live in Reno, Nevada, and I travel the world doing this work. Obviously, now with a lot of it's been online, and I have some online programs that are going. And I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of the panel and to share in the spiritual practices, because that is one of my favorite things. And it's a full moon, and there are rituals and practices that I'm in the midst of doing today. So perfect timing for this series.
Thank you. Anita.
Hi. My name's Anita Kelder, and I'm a spiritual teacher. And firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And it's so lovely to finally be here and connect with all of you. So I teach yoga and meditation and breath work and somatic movement. Much the same as what the previous two panelists were saying, is moving energy and trauma out of the body. And I do that through movement and breath work and through the chakras as well. So I travel as well to do all of this, hosting experiential dynamic retreats. I'm also a conscious birth doula. And so I host workshops in conscious birthing and conscious parenting afterwards as well. And yeah, it's just about, for me, what I like to bring out in my clients is just their sense of bringing the emotion out through movement. And it doesn't always have to be necessarily focused on the trauma. Sometimes we can get through the trauma without even having to really go into it. Some of the superficial stuff that we don't even know we're hanging on to, we can just cut through. And I really like to do that mostly through Kundalini yoga, breath work, and then using my hands through massage therapy and helping to heal chakras.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Ranchelle.
And my mic is working. Yay, success. My name is Ranchelle Van Bryce, and I'm an entrepreneurial success coach. And I work a lot, mostly with women, although I do have a few male clients. And really what I focus on is helping women let go of competition and comparison and move through that imposter syndrome, right? And I find, especially with successful business owners, it's something that they feel a lot. So that's what I do. I'm super excited to be here. I have my own routines and spiritual practices, and so and I bring those into my clients. And so I just feel very honored actually to be here with everyone, all the practitioners. We're all in good hands. As you said, full moon energy, and right, I'm certified in Reiki. My palms are like lit up. So I'm like, we're moving stuff together, ladies. This is fantastic.
Awesome.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Lisa, good morning.
Good morning. Well, I'm really glad I'm going after Ranchelle because I was starting to feel like the kid doing their own thing. I'm actually a leadership coach, and I work with small to medium-sized businesses, helping them to get the best from their team. So what they need to do to work with others. So I felt like the kid doing their own thing out here, but thankfully Ranchelle went right before me. Felt much better. I actually just recently started. I'm in a group with a lot of heart-centered businesses. So I just recently started teaching heart-centered business how to hire the first person to help them out. So I definitely have my own spiritual practices as well. Like Ranchelle, I'm a Reiki master. I don't use it a lot other than for myself, but as part of my own spiritual practices. So looking forward to the chat today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. Michelle.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to join you incredible ladies. I resonate with everything that each of you have said. I'm a life guide, which is a synthesis of a life coach and an intuitive guide. And my spiritual practices are intimately connected with my spiritual journey and my purpose and my path through life. My focus is supporting people on elevating their happiness set point. So I found myself in this interesting place of being a happiness expert, which is quite a thing to live up to. And the journey to happiness is very similar to the journey that you've all described. It's about removing trauma, overcoming habitual patterns and conditioning, focusing on the chakra system. So, I've also created my own spiritual technology and my own spiritual practices by synthesizing tools that I've acquired through my journey. I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a breathwork practitioner, and finding the most potent tools on that journey and synthesizing them together in the spiritual technology that I really feel can support people in elevating the happiness set point. I've written a book called The Habit of Happiness that basically teaches that happiness is a skill that becomes a practice, that becomes a habit. So, as you say, a lot of it is focused on healing and releasing what we've experienced in our history so that we can be fully present, fully in the present moment to experience the joy and happiness that's intrinsically within us and available to us most of the time. So that's my focus.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
I want to introduce my co-host here, Matthew Embray, the Shamanic Happiness Coach.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be on. Yes. Puppies this morning were quite the distraction, so I apologize. I'm here, and I'm so happy to be here with spiritual gifts. Yes. Or excuse me, spiritual practices. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Matthew. Let's get into your story and what you want to share with us today. So we'll start with Elizabeth, and we've kind of shifted orders here, so let's adjust. I'll start with Elizabeth.
Great, thank you. Well, interesting question. The what the bleep are spiritual practices, and my one sentence answer is anything that takes me into the present moment. Right. As I said, my area is chronic pain management, stress management. And usually what stresses us out the most? I know at least for me, because I was in chronic pain for a long time, is I'm living in the past or the future, and I miss the present moment. And where does the healing happen? It happens right here, right? So, and if I'm having an argument with the present moment, I'm still in the past because I'm bringing baggage in, right, to the present moment. So, anything that takes us into the present moment is I consider a spiritual practice. And then the other piece of that was any practice that helps to remove the conditioning, the identity with my thoughts, anything that removes the veils so that I can at least get a glimpse of, experience my true self. That to me is the essence of the spiritual practice. My practices include, but are not limited to, being in stillness, meditation, prayer, energy healing such as ancestral clearing. I'm not a Reiki master, but I have lots of friends that are, and I love that practice. Exercise, right? Physical exercise. Yoga, the word itself means to yoke. It refers to the mind, body, spirit as one. So that's the oneness. We're trying to get to the oneness instead of the separation, right? Sound healing through chanting, sound bowls, or the gong, and I do all of those. Breathwork, pranayama, of course, is part of a yoga practice. And then I think my number one all-time favorite that I've loved since I was born was being in nature. Nature has taught me more about spiritual practice than anything else. So that's my list.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing. Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Well, exactly what Elizabeth said. So much of what you said is spot on, obviously, with what I feel in the spiritual practice. One of the things I want to share with everybody is that every morning I wake up, I do a practice called Loving Myself Awake. And there's a guided version of this, free guided version. If you go to that website that's listed, letstalktantra.com, you'll get the free guided version of that. And what this practice is it's allowing me to tap into my heart space and really connect with love and gratitude for the body that I live in. And so this practice goes through and touches every part of my body. And while I'm breathing in love and gratitude and thanking that part of my body for all that it does, because I think that's so critical for us to really tap into that. That's that is my daily practice. And it doesn't matter where I'm at, what I'm doing, I can always bring that in. I can't always bring in a fire ceremony like with the full moon all the time, because sometimes I'm in places that just isn't possible. But with this one, this is something I do each and every day, and I notice if I don't. So it's also that thing of like noticing how these practices, once we've embodied them and we're always doing them, how it changes our lives, how it affects us in our daily lives, and what happens if we don't do it. That's what I notice is like, oh my gosh, what's off today? Something's wrong. And I'm like, oh, I jumped up and I ran out the door because I had to catch a plane. And then all of a sudden I'm like a little wobbly, and I'll just do the practice right then. I can just sit down and go through the whole thing. This practice, what's really amazing about this is somebody asked me the other day where this came from. And I'm like, oh, well, I just kind of created it. But as I thought about it, I remembered that when I was in 6th grade, I had a French teacher who sent the boys away and the girls got to stay in the room. And she did this practice of, we would lay on the floor and she would go through each body part. Tighten up your feet, your toes, and then relax. Tighten up your ankles and then relax. So it's a combination of that, as well as Laya yoga, which is coming into that yogic position and paying attention to how energy is flowing through the body, as well as my Tantra teacher, Charles Muir, does his particular yoga is a very gratitude based yoga where he's thanking and telling that part of his body, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's a weaving of those two things, which isn't that interesting because Tantra is all about weaving. But it is a weaving of those two practices and then developing my own connection with what makes sense to me. And that's what I offer my students as well, is I say, do the practice, do it for a month, embody it fully, and then start allowing yourself to weave whatever you bring in, make it your practice so that it's not, something you have to do, that you have to listen to me, but you can create your own with it. And I think that's an important part of what we do in practices. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Ranchelle.
Yeah, I think each time I can go ditto. I think, so that it would be a short series. Right. I believe, like from my perspective, I think what I wanted to share was, and Lisa, you kind of touched upon it, is that it's an integration of whatever practices and an embodiment, right? And so it's one thing to read. So I'll give you an example. In my coaching practice, I teach the women how to integrate and embody the 11 spiritual truths by Raymond Hollywell. It's a great book written a long time ago. So it's one thing to be in awareness, and I'll use a law that most people know, the law of attraction. Right? You can read it and go, oh yeah, I've done that. It doesn't quite work. Right? I did all the affirmations, I did the things, and it just doesn't work out. But there's a reason why it didn't work out. And it's the integration and embodiment of what the practice is itself, what the spiritual law is. And it's like the law of gravity. It does work. You just may not know why it's working or how it's showing up. So I would think from my perspective, when I was, listening to both Elizabeth and Lisa speak, it's whatever tool works really well for you, whatever you feel a calling to. I call it my magnificent obsessions, and then really leaning into what that is. I think the other ritual that I have on a regular basis is being aware of how my brains work. So your brain is a goal achieving machine. So whatever you decide that you want, it can come from a want as in a lack, or a desire as in from the space of prosperity and abundance. Your brain will seek out the ways and means for that to happen. Reticular activating system kicks in. From a spiritual perspective, we can go back to the universal laws. Once you decide that you want something, and that can be a want from a lack or a desire, the universe conspires. It does by law, right? And so it feels kind of silly, speaking to the choir, right? We all come from that perspective, right? It is, though, there was many times in my life, in my 30s, that I knew, let's say, the law of attraction. Again, I'm going to use that one, but I wasn't integrating it. I wasn't embodying it. So part of, I think, the ritual is to, as I said, to lean in and ask different kinds of questions. So, for example, if you ask why, your brain is going to go back. It's like a huge Google search engine, and it's going to tell you all the reasons why this is happening. It's usually because you suck. It's never because you're brilliant, you're amazing, you're a rock star, right? And so then it's asking different kinds of questions, like what else is possible, right? What is the truth in this? What is the meaning I'm giving this? Because the problem's never the problem. The problem is the meaning that you give the problem. So what's the meaning that I'm giving this? Am I responding or am I reacting? Right? What law am I experiencing? Am I experiencing the universal law of supply, the universal law, right? Of demand, the universal law of polarity, the universal law of vibration. Like there's 11. So asking these questions, for me, when I really started to take time in the morning, getting up. Right. I don't get up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm more of a, sunrise. So wintertime, I sleep in until 6. Summertime, I'm up at 5. But that was the other piece of it, was getting up. And for years, I told myself, well, I'm not a morning person. So of course I wasn't. The moment I decided that I was a morning person, I was. And so I think that there's something in the stillness of a household, right? So if I can't go outside, I live in a city, I live in Canada, it's cold in the winter, I'm not going to go outside. So where can I grab this stillness? Where can I do that? And that can just be in the stillness of my breath, right? Moving into my breath, being aware of that. So yeah, I think, probably talk for hours, and I will be quiet now. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Ranchelle. Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks. I love going after you, Ranchelle. I have so many things that I feel very connected to you already. I have so many things that I do that are the same. I will call myself a dabbler. So I'm not, and I wouldn't call myself an expert in any one piece. My own spiritual practices are what I need in the moment. And so sometimes that's another spiritual practitioner. I see them and I think, oh, you know what? I need what you're offering. And I go. And I'm very, I do things more intuitively than anything else. When I was learning Reiki, I learned Reiki from 2 different people. Intuitively, I knew that the person I took level 1 and 2 from, I was not going to take level 3 from her. I can't tell you why. I just knew that she wasn't the person to do level 3. And when I went to do level 3, I went with a different person, and both of them recognized very quickly they said, you're very intuitive in the way you do things. But my personality is such that I like to do different things all the time. So I like to try different sports. I like to try different ways to move my body. I like to try different, and then spiritual practices as well. Reiki's probably the one that I went through the most with, but I need that silence in my day. Like Ranchelle talked about, I like to get up before the kids get up so that I have those moments by myself. I do my meditation in the morning, I journal, and right now I'm reading a book. That I read the same chapters over and over each week. It's a challenge I'm doing with someone. And those are the things that I have to have in the day. So like the other Lisa said, when I don't have those, when I run and think, I got to go. And I did for a period when my stepchildren first moved in, I would come straight to the office and then try and do those routines later. And that was a big mistake. I did not like who I became because I was a very grumpy person. But some of the things that I've discovered, I went through a health issue, and food is really important for my spiritual practice. Eating the proper foods for me, it changes everything. It changes your mental, it changes your emotional, it changes your spiritual practices, because all of those things are obviously tied together. But the more I'm focused on those, the easier it is for me to do my practices in a better way, I'll say. Because sometimes I get bored. Again, I'm a dabbler. So sometimes I get up in the morning and I think, I am not meditating this morning. like I just have this need to be the bad kid today. The bad kid says, I'm not doing this. I know it's good for me, but I don't care. I'm not doing this. And I know I'm not supposed to eat those chocolates, but I'm going to eat them. So my little inner rebel takes me away from it. But generally not for long. I always come back. And really for me, it's what do I need in this moment? And Ranchelle, you said, asking, well, I ask it in a slightly different way, but asking the question, is that true? So when those thoughts are repeating in my mind, is that true? And I do it with my stepkids all the time. Is that true? Is that really what's happening? Or, so it's one of my favorite questions to ask. I absolutely love that question. Yes. Yeah. And the other one is, what do I need right now? What do I need right now? Because sometimes I need to go for a walk. Sometimes I need to have a nap. Sometimes I need to eat the chocolate. Sometimes I need to not eat the chocolate. Every day it's different. So for me, it's about, I guess the same as Elizabeth was saying, was really anything that brings me back to the moment right now, and takes me away from whatever squirrel is running around in my brain.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I think eating chocolate could be a spiritual practice.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I went to a laughing yoga, and that was one of the things she did with us is we spiritually ate a chocolate. You had to let it melt, and she had us describe every feeling or notice every feeling of that chocolate melting in our mouth. So yes, it can be.
Thank you.
Not the way I eat them sometimes, though.
Oh yes, it can be.
Yes.
It's a release.
Yes.
Michelle, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. So for me, I'm going to start at the beginning of my journey and go step by step in terms of the threads of practices that I got connected to. I came in, I feel, knowing that I was a spiritual being. And spiritual practices to me is anything that brings me back to my essence, to my essential nature, knowing the truth of who I am. And ironically, I was born to parents, an atheist and an agnostic, and I knew I was a spiritual being, which was an interesting start. But I feel like what it did was it caused me to carve my own path in relationship to my spirituality and my spiritual practices. So I took myself to church at about the age of 10, and I sort of recognized that environment, just the ritual and the vibration of that environment resonated with my inner being, and it brought me into a place of peace and feeling like I was home. And so I was activated. I wanted to have more of those experiences, so I started doing yoga at age 15. And then I was interested in the question of, why are we the way that we are? What causes us to be the way that we are? I think that question was ignited by the fact that I had twin brothers, identical twins, and they were similar, but they were not exactly the same. One was gay, one was straight. So that gave me a bit of a puzzle when I studied psychology, and their answer was, it's either nature or it's nurture. That's why we are the way that we are. And I thought, well, I don't think so, because I've got twin brothers, and that's not answering that question. So I felt like there was a missing piece for me in that explanation, which is our spiritual path and our spiritual journey. And so that caused me, when I finished my degree in psychology and I was looking for more education on this path, it caused me to look beyond the traditional educational path. And I found hypnotherapy, which I loved, because hypnotherapy to me was the connection of the importance of the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is the key towards the anatomy of spirit, which I feel is the chakra system. So I went on, a study to go deeper into that. Then I discovered holotropic breathing, which gave me an experience of going back into the womb and being born. So again, those experiences that resonated for me as putting me in that connection with my essence and my spirit, those were the practices and the experiences that I wanted to know more about. So I did further education. And then I got into my real education, which was working with clients and helping them, discover what their obstacles were and how to remove them, which caused me to sort of synthesize the most potent tools that I found. And they include yoga, breath work, hypnotherapy. And I love spiritual practices because for me, it's where the rubber hits the road. It's where change actually happens. If people are in a habit or a pattern or a conditioning that they're fed up with themselves, they don't want to continue down that path, and they wanted to know, how do I get out of this particular pattern? I wanted to have the tools to sort of provide them with the way out. And that's what caused me and motivated me to create my own spiritual practices that synthesized all of those most potent tools. And I put them together in my program and my practices. So I work a lot with yin yoga. And I love yin yoga because it goes into the anatomy of the spirit. It goes into the meridians. What it does is it pushes more prana through the meridians that flushes out obstacles with gentle pressure. So I use that a lot. And I find that breathing, in specific patterns of breathing really helps us break free of our conditioning. And one of the things that I discovered that I just want to share is that when we go crazy, when we go out of our mind, let's say, we don't do it in a random or a chaotic way. We actually do it in a very predictable and structured way. And that structured way is related to the anatomy of the spirit. It's related to the chakra system. So then I developed practices for each of those pathways that we can walk. So I feel like we're each of us in one of those 7 pathways. So I developed the tools that were specifically for each of the pathways and the tools that were for all of the pathways combined. So I've created a lot of practices, yoga practices, meditation practices, breathing practices that are really specifically focused on that. And that's what the cover of my book is, these 7 pathways to the pot of gold at the end of the pathway. That's our connection to our spirit and our essence. That's what that pot of gold is. So that's my journey and my focus in my work.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
I want to get a copy of your book.
Yes.
Good morning, Anita. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. So what I'm getting from everyone, because it's similar for me, is that we all sort of have this Tex-Mex of spiritual practices of what works for us and what we want to share with other people to see what works for them, because we're not linear energy, right? We're not linear beings. And because the meridians are pathways and they crisscross throughout our body. So it makes sense that we all need something and a combination of spiritual practices to ascend in our lives. And it just makes such perfect sense. And so on my path, I've been teaching yoga, meditation, and breath work for over 20 years, but I think Ranchelle was saying that she didn't embody hers either when she was in her 30s or something like that, or that's when you did. And it was the same for me. I was in my 30s when I was teaching this and feeling my best in some ways, but I think I was giving more than I was really giving to myself. I was giving outwardly rather than giving the practices truly to myself. And I went down some really hard roads after that. And it leads me to really why I'm here today. So just over a year ago, I was in a very serious car accident. And it was actually the 3rd accident I'd had in 4 years. So just a little bit of a wake-up call from the universe. And that's why I'm sharing really big now, so that people can understand that it's all energy. We're all energy. Everything is energy. And where you put your energy is what's going to come back to you. And mine was coming back with some pretty hard lessons in my body, right? So the car accidents really had debilitated me for a long time and stuck in my tissues. And then, of course, that's resonating everywhere else, into the brain, your belief system, negative habits, all of that. And after this past accident, the 3rd one, because it was so harsh, I listened. And I didn't want to be repeating those patterns. And it became very clear to me from energy source that things had to change if I wanted to keep living a beautiful life and change those negative things that I was bringing on into my own life. And so I delved deeply into my past spiritual practices. I went straight back into Kundalini yoga and activating breath techniques, really raising my vibration to levels I had never experienced before, and just trusted and was guided. And I always pick Kundalini yoga because it just breaks through patterns so quickly, allowing you to get to those deeper things that are sticking, the sticky muck. And that's where you can start receiving from a place of love, self-love, to get over whatever it is you need to get through. And so when I started making those practices a daily routine, I started to pull from, well, I was guided really into other spiritual practices. And one of them was a hypnotherapy. And I went straight back into the womb from a hypnotherapy and discovered so many, I discovered so many answers of why I had been living my life the way I was. And that actually really started to wake me up. And it led me into writing a chapter in the co-authored book, Blue Talks. And I wrote in the 5th edition of Business, Life, and the Universe, and just spoke on stage not too long ago in Edmonton about my journey and how when we take a Tex-Mex of different practices and make them our own, and whether you do it first thing in the morning or you do have that rebel inside of you, because I can be like that too. And because I do get bored as well. I'm a Gemini Cancer cusper. I like to say I'm a redheaded, left-handed Gemini Cancer cusper. And there's a lot going on. And so I have to learn how to hone all that in and honor who I am and make the balance and then help others. Like, yeah, it doesn't have to be one way or another. Not everyone is able to get up in the morning because of lifestyle. And so if you're better at doing your meditation at night, great. Go for that baseline that brings you back to who you are. And if that needs to happen at night, that's fine. But you do have to navigate the whole day. And so having other smaller techniques just to bring you into your center is how we can get through each moment every day, getting out of the analytical mind and just getting into our heart center. And it can be just through visualizing different colors moving through the body. It can be visualizing and breathing through the chakra system. I hold a lot of crystals now. I never used to be into crystals until after the accident. And funny enough, I ended up moving into a home that this is one of the crystals. I don't know how well you can see it, but these crystals are embedded into the foundation of my home all over the place. And hello, I see that crystal. And yeah, I ended up manifesting a house that was a healing home for me. And what happened after the accident, when I started embodying more and more and more that was giving me life, was I ended up doing an integration of the soul. And that's why I had to write about it in the book. And it's so incredible to just take those step backs and you start seeing all those stepping stones that have brought you to where you are now. And then you are able to see those experiences in life from a different standpoint, because you can step back and just see it as, oh, I see why that happened, or why I got that job, or why I met that person. And you see your ascension to present day. And for me, that became really my journey of self-love, and also learning how to be selfish. And, you know, that has such a negative connotation, but until we learn how to give to ourselves completely, we cannot fully give to others. And that was a real journey for me of forgiveness for things that I had done, knowing I had to do them, but I know that they had hurt other people. And because I didn't give myself the forgiveness for so long, That's why I was hurting myself, and that's why the universe was bringing back hurt on me. And through all the car accidents, I was hurting myself. And so learning forgiveness, learning self-love, embodying the truth of who I am and the path of why I'm here today. And that all comes to spiritual practices and whatever it is for you. So I like to start my morning with segments of intention that I learned from Esther Hicks. And that whole Esther Abraham and Jerry Hicks came about to me after the car accident. I was literally led on my path to so many different directions that all worked for me. And so I like to start the day, the first 3 minutes when you wake up is you're still in that hypnagogic stage between sleep and wake. And it's that same stage as when you're falling into sleep, right? And that is the magic of you connecting with the universe. And it's such a powerful, powerful time for segment of intention of, okay, this is how my day is going to go. And when I place my feet on the ground, I'm earthing myself in grounding and rooting myself. And when I think of the word grounding right away, I go straight into the first chakra, our tailbone. And the first chakra is how we feel in our safety of being on earth. And so, you can feel, how do I feel today? And in those first 3 minutes, you don't even want to be thinking. All you want to be doing is breathing and feeling and making those choices just through a sensation of breath work and making sure you're setting your day up for success. And so, if you have a meeting coming up, you can just visualize and breathe into the heart, or breathe into the solar plexus, and you breathe in the color yellow right at the belly button, and you visualize your meeting going really well and having beautiful interactions, just as I did. I showed up early because I was on a different time zone. And so I had an hour before this session to say, oh, well, goody, it's an hour more just to breathe all these different colors and sensations into my body before I step into this platform, so that I'm giving out to everyone else as well, and I'm feeling centered. And so starting your day with those segments of intention, and then I like to do movement. And not every day is Kundalini yoga, because it's going to perhaps bring things up. And sometimes you're like, oh, not now, not today. And so I might just put on some really fun music and get really groovy and just move my body that way and flow that way, because I'm just rising up my vibration. Whatever I'm doing, it's all about rising up your vibration. And then I'm ready to maybe sit in meditation. And I also like to do a really beautiful, and this is something that everyone can do. When we were saying, maybe you can't always start your day at home and in presence, but then you get out into the world and you're not feeling quite right. You've got those smaller, quick fixes that you can do to bring you into your center. And if anyone knows a woman named Marie Diamond, she's an energy feng shui master, and I learned a beautiful technique from her, and I made it my own. And it just embodying white light within yourself from the feet all through your whole center and upwards, and then building that light arm's length around you, above you, and then you go and you bring in like the power of the universe through the color blue, and then the love of the universe, the color pink, and then the forgiveness of the universe through the color lavender, and then connecting to your north node, your star right above your head that is always there guiding you, and then bringing in the golden white light into your entire being and all around you for the abundance of the universe. And it's simple and quick, and then you're done and you're ready to go, because you've just built your whole aura and you're ready to go out into the world. And so just so many spiritual practices that it sounds like we all embody together, but also individually. And I think that is the key, is finding your individual spiritual fitness, because in the world today, everything is about aesthetic fitness. And I've seen yoga change over the years, and it saddened my heart. And I think that's why I even moved away from it for so long, is it just became so about how you look, all the boot camp yoga. And, you know, I'm happy that those people are moving their bodies, and that is all part of it as well. But getting the word out that it's so much more, and it doesn't have to be this hippy dippy thing, or it doesn't have to be, you don't have to wear certain clothes to be spiritual, or look a certain way, or carry around crystals. It doesn't have to be. It's about what feels good for you and connecting into that and finding your strength in that. And obviously that's what we're all here for. So thank you very much.
Yes. Oh my, this is just beautiful, because you already answered. You guys are all really good at being on podcasts, because you've already answered like 5 or 6 of my questions that I could have asked. And I appreciate it, because it's like, well, how many practices are out there, right? And so we already went over a lot of those. And so as we're talking and like thinking back to the previous iterations of our podcast, the question that's landing right now is, like, amongst the myriad of choices that we have, how the hell do we make a decision on which one to walk, right? And I want to open that up just to a few of us to answer, because we have a couple questions to go through that are going to really dive deep into allowing our viewers to like understand what it means to integrate with spiritual practices. Because as I'm hearing everybody share their experiences with these practices, one of the core the core themes that we're seeing is that we do it to return home to ourself, so that we're here present for this moment, so that we're here. And from that, obviously, we might get joy or other things like that. So yeah, with that, I'll just let us kind of go on. It looks like we lost somebody for a second, but they'll be back on.
Right.
Yeah. So how do we make that choice? How do we know what calling to go upon when there's so many? Yeah. Go ahead.
No, my apologies. I would love to answer it because this is one of the things that my clients ask me all the time, but my own experience as well, which is for me. So I'll share. For me, it was, if I was wanting to do something because I was in a lack, like mindset. So meaning I'm not healthy and I'm focusing on not being healthy. What do I need to do to be healthy? That to me that's more of like my ego piece of it. But my divine, the spirit in me, it's like a magnificent obsession. It's a calling. And so I also use what's called my human design, which is there's a strategy and authority. So I really utilize that particular tool to guide me into making, to guide me to help make decisions. And Matthew, I love this question, because when I sit within myself, so whether it's journaling or meditation or breath work or yoga or going for a walk in nature, and it's from a place of abundance and prosperity, meaning a desire. That's what leads me to, and then it's so much easier. And again, I'm only speaking of my own personal experience, to integrate it and to embody it, because it's being divinely led versus I want to look a certain way, or I want to appear to be a certain way. And so I'm going to, sit on the mountaintop and Zen. I'm being silly, but but from that perspective. And that's a fantastic question, because there is a plethora of, I put in our private chat, what's apparent to me is that it's all of our practices include, breath work, some sort of meditation, some sort of movement, and some sort of connection to source energy, whatever that's going to look like for people. So I think, so to wrap that up, I guess succinctly, because I tend to share stories and ramble a little bit, right?
We all do it, yeah.
Right, I know, right? I'm with my people. I'm with my people. So succinctly, it's from my perspective, is it something that you think you should be doing, or is it something that you truly have a desire to explore? Right. I think so. I should be doing this. I'm like, oh no, we don't do that. When the work comes in, I pause. I need to stop, because that's my thinking mind. So
yeah, we don't need to be shooting on ourselves.
Right.
Exactly.
I said all the time.
Yep,
Exactly.
no shooting on ourselves. I love
no
it.
shitting. No shitting. Exactly.
Yep.
So that's
It's
from my
nice.
perspective. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Elizabeth, yes. I really like as well from Ranchelle there that sometimes what you kind of illuminated too is that sometimes you have to do a thing to realize that you don't like it. Yeah. So yes, Elizabeth, thank you. Yes.
Yes, Ranchelle, I love that. Very helpful. I'm going to come in from another angle. So how do you know which or what or which one is for you? And my question would be, well, what's my objective, right? My objective is to live in the flow and with peace in my life, right? So how do you get there? So you get there with a conscious breath. So the way I teach in like a kind of typical yoga comments from me in a class would be find ease in the breath is the engine for the movement. So you find ease in the breath, which leads you to ease in the movement, which leads you to ease in life, right? So whatever practice that you do, it's going to have a component of the breath, because we have to live here with the breath, right? And if it can help you when you get up off the mat or up out of your practice and you're in your practice of life, right? If you can find, if you're walking with ease in life, that's your spiritual practice. That's serving you to get you there. So what's your objective, right? Thanks.
I love that. And Michelle, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it feels like, do what you feel naturally drawn to. What resonates for you? What can you actually feel? I have to say for myself, I've tried lots of yoga practices that felt a little strenuous or a little, hot, which I didn't feel drawn to, and it didn't resonate for me as my particular path. But then when I found the practice that did resonate for me, I could feel in my body sort of like I was home, like I was relaxed, I was connected to my spirit. And then it's joyful and it's easy and you want to do it. So it's something as who I think it was Ranchelle was saying, don't be shooting, that's not going to be something that you're actually going to practice, because it's a practice. So you want to do it consistently. So you have to find the thing that you want to do consistently, because you're feeling good when you do it. You're feeling like, yes, I'm getting elevated, or I'm feeling uplifted I feel the benefit of that practice. So that would be what I would say about that.
I love that. And yes, just a sec. I love that. I hear a little bit of you talking into this kind of new paradigm way of doing things as well. We've had this way of pushing through and demanding that we do things, and that's the should, right? Like we continuously should on ourselves in the work environments a lot. That's why we see a lot of we have the great quitting that happened, right? We're done with these environments that aren't supportive of our natures and our desires and things. So it's interesting that we can have the conversation around, well, we can still have business, but how do we change that conversation from something that's diminishing and demoralizing into something that's uplifting and elevating? So it's a very different experience to be like, go get those dishes done or whatever it might be, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, like we love serving, and or rush is coming, right? So many happy people are going to be coming through, so we have a very different perspective on what we're doing. I know that was a quick little analogy, but anyway, yes,
So
Anita.
I just want to add to that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we're living in really interesting times right now. We're in the age of Aquarius, and we have access to 5D consciousness, and doing the practices is the pathway to that elevation and to that ascension, that I feel there's greater energy around that, greater access, greater ease around that possibility, and a whole series of paradigm shifts that can come from that sort of point of view. So we let go of that masculine push and striving and having to, and relaxing more in that feminine love, flow, ease of things. So why not make life easy and joyful and happy? So that's, I do think that I think this conversation is really timely, is really what I want to say. And I'm so glad that we're having it, and we're having that open exchange of what works, what different options exist for people. And I would just say, go try them all and see which one you like. And then that will be the one that you do.
Right? Yeah. Anita, you wanted to comment on this one too. And then after Anita, I want to jump and ask Lisa to answer this one too, just specifically because of the practices that you teach. Not everybody would go and be like, well, am I supposed to go experience this? Right? It's something that's a little bit more foreign. So anyway, I'm going to mute myself and let you two share and have fun.
I guess, sorry, my phone might die, and it was overheating. That's why I went off camera for a second. So bear with me here. Sorry, so we're talking about the spiritual.
How can somebody know, like, which one to choose amongst all of the things that are out there?
Yeah. So what I find with my clients, I have a lot of it's actually predominantly men who are in their 50s and 60s and up into their 70s, and they're quite A-type personality. They're already very, very successful, and definitely seeking solace, but on the from other experiences. And so when I'm teaching is embodiment of breath work into the body, and just starting there with them so that they don't get freaked out about I got to sit down and meditate, because I can just read it right away. They just shut right down. And so I teach them through movement. And when they're feeling, stiffness or pain in the body, we are bringing the breath right into that place where they feel it. So let's say we're stretching into the hips. And in yoga philosophy, we believe the hips is where we hold most of our emotions. And so a lot can come up when you're opening the hips and opening up through the heart. And it's usually very, very uncomfortable for people. And so just holding them there and bringing the breath and filling up the place of tension in their body with breath work. And then on the exhale, feeling the release in that tension. And so it's very simple for them to start to make a connection into their body, because that's what I'm finding is mostly people aren't even connected in their body. And we have to bring that awareness first into it, and it just simply from breathing. And I can't believe how many people, all the compliments I get after a class like this, these men walking up to me and they're like, oh, that was amazing. I feel so much better. Oh, I just love what you do. And da 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 da. And I'm like, yes, it's easy. You just need to start this on your own. Just breathe into the tension and breathe it out again, because you're going to start to, the more you do that and make the connection into your body, the more that's going to start coming in, taking that off the mat and bringing it into real life. And breathing into the tension in real life, perhaps with a conversation you're having with somebody. Breathe into that and sigh it out and let it go, and then see where you're at from there. And I think that is what I'm finding with my clients, for where they're at right now, is the simplest tool, is just bringing the awareness into the body.
Yeah, I like that, where you're describing becoming aware of the fact that you're disconnected from your body, that experience alone creates thoughts and emotions that are dysregulating. And as you connect into the body, you experience thoughts and emotions that are upregulating or happy. And so that's why you calm down. That's the experience of getting into the body. And so what you're kind of saying is, like, just do something that gets you specifically into your body. So it could be this practice, it could be that practice, but just do something. Yeah.
Bring that awareness in. And the more you do that, the more you're going to be guided in real life to bring. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Cool. Lisa, how do you find something for you that's maybe like not traditional, or that might be scary to tackle, or that might be weird or different? Oh, she's muted.
I think, Lisa, that's for you.
That's for you, Lisa.
Okay, I was like, wait, there's two of us, and I saw Lisa Wilson's hand.
Sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
Yes. Lisa Rizzoli, yes.
Oh, thank you. I really feel that we're called. So, like we were talking earlier, your intuition calls you into a particular practice. Like, somebody will come to me and go, I don't know, I saw your name, I saw this thing, and I'm like, great. So I feel that you've been guided here. So when you feel that guidance, or you notice it, and a lot of people will put up their resistance at that point, like, ooh, wait, I don't know if I want to do that. And especially around Tantra being something that is sexual, and oh my gosh, we're going to work with sexual energy. Does that mean we all get naked? And I'm like, well, what would you like? Somewhat, not always, but sometimes. And so we are guided. I believe that these things show up in our path at the perfect moment. And it's a choice. It's always a choice. You get to choose which step you go on and which trajectory line you will take. Because in the universe, we know there are hundreds and thousands of different possibilities, endless, infinite possibilities for what you will do. So every step takes you on a different line, and all those other possibilities shatter and disappear in that moment. And then the next step comes, and now you get to choose again. So for me, around what practice it is, what were you guided to? And then do the practice. And, sometimes it does feel weird. I share things, and I tell people, let's bring in sound. Let's make ah sound. Ah. And they're like, ah, because there's whatever the reasons are behind that. And so it feels uncomfortable to do something different. But I encourage people to practice with it. You got led here for a reason. Give it a little time. Obviously, if it's hurting your body, that's a whole different thing. But by sounding, that doesn't typically hurt your body. Do some sounds, do some practice, see what it is. When I share the Loving Myself Awake meditation, I encourage people to give it 30 days every day to see if this is a practice that really resonates with them. After 30 days of doing it, yes, this is something I want, or you know what, that one didn't work for me. Perfectly fine and able to do that. So I think what everybody is mentioning and talking about is very legit in all the ways. And we all have our own personal beliefs in it. So what do you believe? Because that's what's important. Believing is seeing. You know, a lot of people say seeing is believing, but I believe that believing is seeing. So when I believe it, I see it. So one of the analogies around that, if you think about this, is if I mention when I used to have my disposal company, yes, I was a trash hauler. I had a big company here in Reno, and they ran these things, and people would say, I've never heard of your business. And I said, well, we're the one with the red containers. I've never seen red containers. But once I put that seed in their head, all of a sudden they call me back like 2 days later. Oh my God, there's red containers everywhere. So that's that path. You were led here for a reason. Are you willing to take it? Are you willing to take that step and give this an opportunity to see if it makes sense? Now, the other thing with that is if you start doing 20 different practices all at the same time, or 5 or whatever, if you take on a whole bunch of different practices coming from different types of philosophies, it's going to be really harder for you to connect with which one is really working, because all of the things are happening at the same time. Now, if they all feel great to you and that makes sense, fabulous, do it. But is it connecting? Feel into that connection.
Yes.
So thank you for asking.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
question. Great question.
Mother Lisa, go.
I just wanted to mention something, and Lisa started to say it, but one of the things for me is I trust my procrastination. I know that sounds like a backwards way to say it, but as Lisa was saying, things get put in your path, and sometimes it's not right now. So maybe now I've met Lisa, and I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. But then I don't act on it right now. Well, rather than kind of punishing myself for not acting on it or going back to well, I should have done it, I just trust my procrastination that it wasn't for right now, and that Lisa's going to show up in my news feed, or she's going to show up again when it is the right time. So if you're feeling like I got to try something, I do it because sometimes I get into I'm going to just use the term, but it's not an actual term. When I get into a bit of a manic mode where I want to get it all done, like Lisa was saying, I'm going to try 10 new things today. So then instead of, I get in that manic mode and I get all these ideas, I just leave the things that I didn't do, because they'll come back. Trust it will come back in your news feed. It'll show up again. It'll come back in front of you, and you'll get to it in the right time for you.
Yes. Yeah. You're thank you for sharing that. Because we will get to that point. And I brought this question up because it's like, well, you think you're missing out on something. You have FOMO because your neighbor is doing something you're not doing. Well, if you were meant to be doing it, you would be doing it. So if you're not doing it, it's okay that you're not doing it, right? And yeah, so yes. So an interesting kind of slight shift in this conversation, but I think it's an important one to have, is I want to talk about the difference between being selfish and being self-centered or self-focused and things we taught. I love that somebody brought this up, that selfish is a loaded word, and oh my goodness, is it loaded. I love working in that realm because I'm like, oh, when do I need to be focusing on myself, right? And to me, that's self-care. But a lot of us have a different connotation. And so how can we break through this idea that self-care is selfish or is bad for you, and reinvent that word to say, yes, I'm going to do this self-care because I am selfish, or whatever you might do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Whoever, yes, go ahead, Anita.
Okay, well, I'll comment on that because when I wrote for the chapter of Blue Talks, I actually called it soul-centered rather than selfish or something like that. I can't remember. But it came down to being soul-centered through the path of first being selfish. And again, if you're not listening to what's being knocked on the door, it's just going to keep pressing harder and harder and harder. And it means you've got to start looking at what's going on. And that is when I became truly selfish. And I had to start taking care of myself. Otherwise, there was nothing left of me to give. And that is certainly not how I wanted to be living my life. I've got children, and they're my everything. So I think breaking through that is by looking at the word self-care and exactly finding all these little tools to bring into ourselves for our self-care. And it's about building the momentum. So as Lisa A was saying, 30 days is something that's really important because, and even actually going to 62 days, because it builds that momentum and that has real resonance of change on a cellular level in the body and in the brain. But also taking all those smaller things to have it all be a momentum, right? And that is the self-care. And I think that's why it is important to carve it out at a time of day before anything else hits you, because like external circumstances or looking at your phone, like you've already set the precipice of your day by the first thing that you do, and that is set in the brain and then in the body. And so taking that time and seeing it as self-care for your centeredness, to give to then be able to step out into the world and give what you can give, and not have your energy get taken away from you. Because if we're and that's what these spiritual practices are all about, is honing our own energy. We're only responsible for our own energy. Otherwise we cannot help anybody else. And so it has to be seen as self-care. It's the same as, because I'm a massage therapist, and lots of people still see massage as like a luxury, or it's a spa day or something like that. And it's so much more, right? It's not just making your body feel better. It's someone with their hands is changing your energy system. And that is self-care. We all feel better after we've had a massage. Most people say, why don't I do this more? Right? So it's really, we have to look at self-care as, not necessarily going for, and I drink wine, and I think alcohol is delicious. There's so many delicious alcohols out there, champagne, wine, all of that. It's lovely. But I think we're in a culture where it's like, it's mommy's time, or it's mommy's little helper, and it's like this big glass of wine. And okay, like whatevs, that's fine. But did it really serve you on a deeper level? And I think that's where we need to break through and start seeing it as self-care. Just taking that time to breathe. That is self-care. And it's just what it comes down to is not reaching on the outside anymore, and maybe having to get a little bit tough with ourselves to reach in. But just changing that conversation. This is self-care. This isn't, oh, this is hard. This is self-care. And I think when the brain sees it that way, it feels very benevolent.
Some of what I hear you saying is reorienting what we do from the day to day, is understanding that part of that needs to be self-care. Like the day you are in has self-care in it. So what are you doing? It's like we all eat, we all breathe, sleep. And so what else are we doing? Yeah, I like that. I'm not sure whose hand went up first, but we'll go with Lisa first. Lisa W first.
Sure. Thanks, Matthew. So I think this is a really hard one, because especially for women, because we were taught to take care of everyone else, right? And so my favorite question then to ask myself is, who do I want to be? And what do I need in this moment to be that person? So instead of looking at it as being selfish, it's what do I need to do for myself so that I can show up and give the way I want to give. I come from an incredibly giving mother, and it brings her joy to do that. I'm not as good as she is in that way. I'm really just not. I mean, that is her self-care, is to give more. She doesn't get resentful. She doesn't get, whereas I start to find if I'm giving too much away, I start to feel resentful because there's not enough coming back. So I have to start to give back to myself and be that, if you want to quote unquote, selfish, and ask for what I want and give myself what I need and ask others for what I need in those moments, even if they think it's selfish, because I want to show up in a better way. I want to be in a better person. So I think it kind of goes back to Elizabeth's answer from before, is what's your purpose? And my purpose is I want to show up in the best version of myself. And the best way to do that is to give myself these things, or in some cases, ask someone else to give me those things. Yeah. So it just sort of takes the word and it switches it around. So in this moment, am I being selfish? Not, I guess, yes. Not the negative connotation to the word. It's I'm going to give myself what I need so that I can show up and be a better mom to you later, or a better, girlfriend, or a better daughter, or a better whatever. I'm, like I said, I'm just not as good as my mom is. and I've known it for years, and I've strived to be as good as she is at it. But I've stepped back and gone, you know what? I can't and I won't, because that's what brings her joy. It's part of her personality to give. And I'm sure there were moments in her time too, because she talked about her own mother that, probably gave too much and made herself sick doing it. So my mom has had these steps, and then I've had the same steps, right? What's gonna work for us? But sometimes being selfish is the most important thing. And I agree, Matthew. I teach that when I'm coaching too, is you have to embrace the word. Just embrace the word. Embrace the word and be selfish where you need to be selfish.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you and I'm integrating this, what's coming through is this saying, or this verbiage that says, oftentimes, okay, let me back up for a second. I can hear the words now. So oftentimes, we don't realize that we've arrived at a location until after we've done experiencing a perpetuation of it. So we don't often realize what the medicine or the benefit to society that we wield, right? So sometimes we get in this box that's like, oh, I'm this type of a person, or I'm this person. But what I'm hearing is, from after listening to you, that we just really have to choose to be this different person, and trust in that we don't need evidence from an outside source that we're doing that. So you're asking, what is the question that I want to be, right? Yeah. And that's a very powerful question. How can you get to the core of who do you want to be today, and believe that you are? So what's in the way of that? That's really powerful, and that's the self-care. I just love that. Beautiful. Yes. Michelle, yes.
Yes.
And then Lisa, the other way.
Thank you, Matthew. I love that question, because I would love to see a paradigm shift around this whole idea of doing your personal work, doing your personal growth work. And I think it's a responsibility to ourselves and to others to be on the path of, taking care of what we need to take care of internally within ourselves, so that we can come from a full well and then give to others, rather than perceive that as being self-absorbed or being selfish to take care of those things. Because responsibility is the ability to respond, to have the ability to respond internally with what your own needs are to be attended to, and attend to them, so that you can support others in their ability to attend to their own needs. My favorite people to hang out with are people like you guys who are on the path and sort of doing the work, because your energy's clean and your ability to be present is elevated. And that's what we want. We want to be present with people who are present to us, so that we can express ourselves for who we are. That's all the soul really wants, is to express itself for who it is. So I would love to see a whole paradigm shift in society that sort of elevates that idea of taking care of yourself and taking care of your practices, and that being your gift that you give to others, is that you've gifted that to yourself, and then now you can bring that full cup and offer it out in your exchange with other people.
I love it. Oh, yes, yes. I love it. Oh, my goodness. Okay, Lisa R., let's do you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Another great question. And I love the conversation that's happening and how we're all unfolding and pulling and teasing out what this all is. So I got real curious because we're talking about this definition of selfish. And so I looked it up. And the definition of selfish is concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, pleasure, or well-being without regard for others. With that definition in place, I don't want to be selfish. I want to be self-caring and self-love. And I think that this is where we came up with these new terms, because we wanted to get away from the classic definition of what selfish is, because that's what's ingrained in us. That's what's written in the dictionary. So
A shadow, it has a lot.
a lot of shadow there, a lot of shadow. So if that's what selfish is, that's not what I want to be. But I do want to take care of me. So I love what we were talking, like Anita, we've got to fill our own cup before we can give to others. I need to come from a place of fullness before I can give. And if I'm not receiving, which this is something I hear in my practices in Tantra all the time, I'm a really good giver, but I'm not good at receiving. If you cannot receive, you cannot give. If you cannot be good at receiving, you cannot be good at giving. It is a continuum that must be in place, because if it's not, then we're tapping out and we're losing that ability, and we're exhausting ourselves, and we're doing all these things. So it's very important. So I think that paradigm shift that needs to happen has to get away from selfish. We can't go around saying, I'm doing this because I'm selfish, because then we're trying to change a definition that's been established for a very long time. That's why I think self-love came in, and this desire to change that paradigm and to shift the paradigm into, we must take care of ourselves in order to take care of others. That's the oxygen mask that we hear about every time we get on a plane. You must put the oxygen on you first. And it's very, very true. So that's my part in this one. Thank you again for the great questions. I love it.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. Okay, since everybody's going to be commenting on this, I love it. We'll go Ranchelle and then Elizabeth, and then we'll probably have time for one more question. Yes.
I always appreciate when there's coincidences, because I know there's no such thing. So Lisa, it's hilarious because part of what I teach my clients is the meaning of words. Like, words have weight to it. So when we talk about, if you actually look up the definition of self-love, and so this is one of the exercises I have my clients do. So that's what I used to look at the selfish. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is hilarious. Self-love, actually, it says under the dictionary, it goes back to it's being selfish. So the same definition happens in self-love. So I know, right? So when I looked that up, I was like, isn't that amazing why then we have such a challenge with this word as well? So there's like a deeper meaning to the fact that it's in the dictionary, it's written as also being selfish. So I think one of the pieces is understanding for each individual what self-love could look like. But I also think that part of that is understanding what our boundaries are. And I'm going to give a quick example of a story. So when my husband and I split up, one of the things that I realized is that I had spent a lot of my marriage dimming my light. So making myself not quite stand up so much. I'm 5'10" without heels. I wear heels all the time. So it's just even funny to say that, right? Because my shoulders are as broad as most men's. I have a very big presence, right? I'm tall, I'm broad shouldered. When I was bodybuilding, I was bigger than most men.
Oh.
So to like dim my light, right there had to be a lot of effort to do that. And it was like 3 days after we separated, I realized that I had spent my life with him doing all the things. Every decision that I had made was so that he would love me. It wasn't because I loved him. And that's a tiny, tiny shift. I made all of these decisions in my life so that he would love me, not because I loved him. I know, right? So when I realized that, and I realized that I needed to make decisions for myself. So even if it was like, I love this person and I'm still choosing to do this thing that might be perceived by other people as selfish. And there's been many times since then that my family has said, you're extremely selfish. And my response to them is, thank you. Because I'm taking care of myself. Right. And what they think of me is none of my business. So my children, my parents, my former husband, my current partner, my friends, right. And the common denominator that I hear is that I'm very aware of my own feelings and what I desire. And I'm like, yes, this is true. So if I give the meaning that that's being selfish is bad, and I mean, it's easy to do that because we look it up in the dictionary. It's like, well, right? At least I said, like, who wants to be that, right? But if I could also look at it and go that I'm aware of my boundaries and I'm aware of what I desire. I'm aware of my limitations, right? And I'll make decisions based on what I need, regardless of what the people in my life think. And we have an open communication policy. So then we have discussion around what their perception of, right, what selfish is for them and why they felt that my decision to do the thing was selfish, right? So I think, one of the most powerful pieces is we have definitions, and then that we have, and then we have meaning that we give things. So can we rephrase it? Can we show up differently based on the meaning? And Lisa Wilson, it's so funny because one of the questions that I ask my clients all the time is, who do you want to be? I mean, really, again, there's no coincidences. So I love the conversation. Who do I need to be? As a doer, that's a great question. I'm a doer. But I need to ask myself first, who do I need to be, including from this perspective of taking care of myself and having clear boundaries. So thanks for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, I love this in this discussion. It seems like what we've picked up on is that we want a word to describe loving the self that isn't negative. And I'm kind of, it's just kind of baffling to me at this moment. There's got to be a culture somewhere that does have this word specifically that means this. And yes, Elizabeth probably knows it. So I'm kind of like, oh, this is interesting that this is evidence perhaps that we're choosing a new word because we're in that paradigm shift and we're doing it currently. Yeah. So thank you, Elizabeth. Go.
Yes, thank you. You just set me right up. And thank you everyone for it's a great question. Thank everyone for your contributions. So the way I break it down is I break the rules of English and I made up my own word. So there's selfish, which is a negative action at the expense of others. And an example of that would be addiction and the consequences of following that addictive behavior. Self-full, right? Self-full is a positive action where everyone benefits, right? I fill my cup first, everyone else gets the overflow. And an example of self-full behavior is personal growth work. So that's how I break it down. And I don't think you'll find self-full in the dictionary yet. But maybe in 10 years.
We can make our own dictionary.
Yes.
Yep. I love it. Talk about synchronicity. I love how our questions are just coming together. It's perfect. I just another day at the office. Really, this is just it's beautiful. I love how everything comes together. To kind of close this up, because at this point, we basically just have to ask the collective or anybody that we see who's viewing this, who's not viewing this, who will view this in the future, to start your practice, right? Pick up something. And so it is synchronistic that we're doing this just around a full moon. Hello. So what are you all doing for your full moon practice? What are you doing if this is a resonant thing? Or if you have something else that's more resonant to you, what is that thing? Personally, I love full moons. I get a lot of that completion energy from full moons. New moons hardly faze me. I love new moons because it's like, oh, I just woke up today kind of a thing. New moons are the huge heaviness to me. And so I generally like to do practices around those times. So I'm going to shoot the brood up and I'll let it just go around, and we'll just go Elizabeth, Lisa, Anita, Ranchelle, Lisa, and then Michelle. Beautiful, beautiful. And within this, sorry, I forgot. Share your practice, and then also if you have an offering for the community. There we go.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Lisa, Julie, you were unmuted. You're muted. What were you saying?
And please share with our audience how they can get in touch with you, so they can connect with you to learn your spiritual practices, and you can mentor them or lead them.
Perfect. So full moon, I don't generally sleep very well on a full moon, and last night was no exception. Which is, it is what it is. I've just, I'm a female. I've learned to roll, right? To roll with the wave, right? So around full moon time, I mean, I'm an ancestor clearing practitioner. So one of the things that I do, that's a forgiveness in the sense of offering what we carry up that's unhealthy up to higher power to help us release, offering up, right? So at a full moon is a perfect time to release that which no longer serves, to allow space for something new to come in. And you can find me on my website, elizabeth-kipp.com. I have a 40 days of forgiveness practice, which is an emailer. It's for like $24. You get an email every day. There's 41 of them because you get a bonus, and each one has a little blog about one aspect of forgiveness. There's like 41 different aspects of forgiveness, right? And then an ancestral clearing prayer to go with that aspect of forgiveness. So it's a sweet practice. You have to put the hyphen, Elizabeth-Kipp.com, because Elizabeth-Kipp.com is a web designer and a photographer, and she's amazing, but she's not me. Anyway, you'll find that practice on my store. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So for me, for full moon, I'm like you, Matthew. Full moon is really what calls me most. It does keep me up at night because it shines right through my window, and I love being in the moonlight. So I do moon tanning at night, and it's fantastic. I love that. I also always do, well, I shouldn't say always, but when I can, I do full moon fire ceremonies. So typically, especially right now, I'm doing those live on my page at Tantra Talk on Facebook. You can look that up and connect with me there, or even get on my personal Facebook page. Sometimes I do them together. We also do a new moon ceremony, and I put it on there as well. And we do that at my friend Gene's house, because for him, it's new moon that is really exciting. For me, it's the full moon, and I like to do my full moon ceremony on my own. I don't typically have people come to my house. I don't typically do that with others, other than putting it on the live camera so that people can kind of see, because it is very special to me. The moon is very special. I am a moon baby all the way. As far as my offering, again, check out that website, letstalktantra.com. You can catch that guided meditation, the Loving Myself Awake practice that I do every day. I highly recommend it to to anybody who wants to give it a shot and give it a try. So there it is. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on the panel.
So for me, with the full moon, I see it as it's been this time of energy where the moon is full and it's not taking any more. And so I like to look at astrology, at what's happening right now. So this is a Libra full moon. Libra is all about balance and synchronicity. And I'll just, it's very personal for me as well. I sit in front of my fireplace and I contemplate the energies that's going on in space. And so with the Libra full moon, I'll sit and think, well, what have I filled up? What energy is full of me right now? And how have I brought balance to that? And where do I need to bring a little more balance? And I do like to write things out, and then I will throw it into my fire so that it burns and know that I've given it away. And I love the new moon too, because it's really exciting. And I feel like it's the time to draw in everything that you're wanting. And then you've got the season of in between where we've done the work or not. And then you're sitting in the full moon having retrospect of, oh, so what's happened between that last new moon and this full moon? And just go from there. It's just just getting into self again and seeing, did I slip off my path with no judgment, and why? And okay, I can do this or that. And it's just a deeper look of looking at the fullness of in between the new and the full, and getting rid of what I don't want, and knowing that after today, after the full moon has really embodied itself with its energy, it's time to bring in the new again, bring in what I want, because the full moon is waiting now, and we're just getting ready for the new. And I think it's such a big energy for all of us. And so just feeling that energy. And I've been away working, so I haven't been able to make very many videos. But I do have a YouTube channel, and it's Anita.Kelder. My website is coming, but I'm going to be starting to post more things on my YouTube channel. And so if anyone wants to look at that, I'll be offering and sharing what I do to help and guide others. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew and Julianne and everyone. So it's interesting. Again, something I follow is called human design, and it's a combination of astrology, chakra system, I Ching, and there's different energy types. And I'm a reflector. So less than 1% of the population is a reflector, and we are guided by the moon. We are actually to make decisions. It's called the lunar cycle. So, which is interesting for a doer who takes action once, right? It used to be like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, and I would do it. So the moon is extremely important. The 30 days is extremely important. So whether it be a full moon ceremony or a new moon, I'm fortunate enough to have a hot tub in the backyard. And so it is a naked full moon or naked new moon, howling at the moon or crying at the moon or yelling. I've had the police here once because I literally was howling. The neighbors had called the police. And I'm like, oh, I was just doing a full moon ceremony. And the poor young cop, he was just like, all right, ma'am. I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And one of the greatest resources really is YouTube. And so I just literally will search, right, new moon or pink moon, right, April meditation, and I'll do something in my backyard, right? And it's usually 2 or 3 days, in the row. So I'll take advantage of the energy for sure. And I think, I know I've always known I was, influenced by the moon, but really when I started to dig into human design and realize that's my actual strategy, it really made, like everything else, right, starts to make sense. And I'm going to make it really easy for people. I mean, certainly you can look me up, RanchelleVanBryce.com. It's a long name. There's not a lot of Ranchelles, thank goodness, but the best way to get in touch with me, because I have a few things that I'd love to share with people depending on their needs. So you can text me, which, and I'm going to give you my number to text, which is 780-679-7275. So again, 780-679-7275. I have an incredible quiz called Are You Pursuing or Creating? The Difference Between Smart Goals and Goals with Souls. So there's just a couple of different things. So just depending, it'll be a quick texting conversations. How can I be of service, and what can I provide? So thanks so much. Again, appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Ranchelle, and thanks, Julie and Matthew, for having us on. This has been a lot of fun. I'm not as drawn to the moons, or maybe I am more than I realize. But generally, I follow whatever I'm being pulled to at that time. And if I think about it, around the full moon, cleaning becomes really important to me. The house needs to be cleaned. I need to put everything away. I just feel called to do that. And so I do. The other thing I'll do is I will smudge the house, and I'll put my crystals in a window. And those don't happen all the time. They're when I remember, or when there's no more water in the cup that I keep. I have a little altar that I keep. I took a course at the magic school, and part of the course was you create an altar, and so I have all my crystals and everything on that altar. So they go into the cup, and generally I look in the cup and go, "Ooh, it's supposed to have water in it." And that's the reminder that I need, that it's time to pay attention to when the full moon is coming and get those in the window.
It's a fair reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, geez. But I think the other piece for me is again, it's all intuitive for me, and I'll kind of realize it's coming when I'm feeling called to either release something, and I'll be like, well, what's that about? Oh, it's the full moon coming. So again, I suggest everyone just kind of follow your intuition with those things. And the other piece for me is I only smudge the house if I can get some time alone, because my stepkids and my boyfriend really don't like the smell of smudging. So they're all gone tonight, thankfully, so I can actually do it tonight. They don't enjoy it, so I just do it when they're not around. It's usually gone by the time they get back. And to get in touch with me, it's I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a leadership coach, so a little bit outside of this realm, but obviously I use what I know in my coaching. I'm a huge believer in what I call the dual paths of leadership, is that leadership is two pieces. It's taking care of ourselves and taking care of the team. And you have to do both, because if you don't, you're not going to be as effective as you can be. Anyone can reach me through my website's probably the easiest way to find me. It's lmwcoaching.ca, because I'm in Canada. But all of my social media is LMW consultation. So LinkedIn, and Facebook, and what's the other one? Instagram. There it is. So you can find me on there. You're always free to book time with me. If you go to any of my social media, there's a link there just to book a call with me. It would be a Zoom call, and no obligation, just a quick 20-minute chat and just get to know each other.
So thank you, everyone, for this great conversation. I've really enjoyed being a part of this sort of discussion. I love it. When it comes to the moon, I do a little bit of naked howling to the moon, just as other people do, but I don't have a video of that I'm going to share. So what I do have that I would love to share is I would invite you to come to my website, Michelle Bradshaw Canty.com. Canty is Kanti, and on there you'll get a free quiz where you can identify what your chakra path is, and then you'll be guided into tools and practices that will be specific for that path. Also, I'd invite you to come to my YouTube channel, and on my YouTube channel I've got lots of free offerings. I've got free meditations, free yoga practice, and I would encourage you to do the happiness meditation practice, because I That's what I do. I'm a happiness coach. So I'd love to invite you to sort of participate in that. And my telephone number, if you do want to get in touch with me directly, is 650-270-0940. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody, especially our great hosts, for putting this on and being part of this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. This has been beautiful. I tried to be able to type everybody's stuff really quick and put it in the chat or the little post, but I'm not that great at typing. So please rewatch the last 10 minutes if you need to get back to something and pause it. But yes, thank you so much, everybody, for showing up today. This has just been an amazing run, a beautiful ending, well, quasi pause to our What the Bleep is Spirituality series. And yeah, we have just so much gratitude. I am so looking forward to auditing every single of our videos and making those tidbits and reaching out to everybody. You know, like I'm going to be like, oh, where can I go and find this information? So I want to catalog stuff. You know, I want to get to everybody's thing. I want my little tome of information. I love it. So thank you, everybody, again. I can't wait until the next iteration. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been such a journey. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all your wisdom that you shared today. I have so many notes to go work on now and things to go practice or try to practice and commit to those for 30 days. Try them on. If I don't like them, I'll send them back. It's like Stitch Fix or something. So this has just been a fabulous webinar series. And I want to thank my co-host and friend Matthew for showing up and doing these and being you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be me too. And thank you everybody for being yourselves. That was good.
I just want to add that if anybody wants to get in touch with not just this panel that missed, maybe writing down the information or from a past webinar series, if you want to connect with somebody, you can always go to our website, which is whatthebleep.xyz, or our social media, get a hold of us so we can put you in contact with anybody that you'd like to connect with. So I'd like to thank all our audience, viewers, future listeners. So thank you. Have a wonderful holiday weekend and a wonderful full moon experience.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody. Have fun. Bye-bye.